What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Juicy Jet Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Rooney, and I am back in the US of A. Finally back home. I got the mic set up. I got the better camera. So hopefully the sound's a little bit better than the last one that I recorded, which was an emergency podcast for the Jermaine Johnson trade. We got a lot to talk about today because there was a lot of other things that happened this week that I was a little out of the loop on. I was in the UK. It was very hard for me to keep up with the combine because everything was happening late at night or while I was asleep. But I've come back. I've taken in all the information. I'm ready to talk about a lot of it. So I've watched all the videos too. So don't worry. I am up to date on everything that's going on in Jetsland, as I should be. So what I want to do today, there's a couple topics I want to go through. Number one, I had an amazing experience at the USA-Canada gold medal men's ice hockey game, and I want to tell you about it because it was really cool, once in a lifetime. Obviously, I got the boys behind me here on this virtual background, so I want to tell you about that. Then I want to go into some of the things that happened at the combine. So you got the Aaron Glenn and Darren Mougey press conference that happened, which I thought there were some interesting nuggets and takeaways we can pull from that. Then, of course, let's hit on the Jermaine Johnson trade just a little bit more. I just want to highlight it over it really quickly, just in case you missed that emergency podcast a few days ago. Then we'll go into some of the combine results, things that I'm excited about, some of the things that stood out to me. And then finally, we've got a big March ahead of us, so I'll just shout out a couple of the dates that you got to look out for because news is going to come in quick. It's going to come in hot over the next few days and the next few weeks. So we want to be on top of it. So with that, let's talk a little bit about this crazy trip I took to Milan, Italy for the USA-Canada U.S. men's ice hockey gold medal game. Now, obviously, it's been a very, very long time since the USA men's hockey team has won the gold medal. Yes, the last time they won was the Miracle Game in 1980, which if you're around my age, like you grew up on that movie. That movie, I think I had my birthday party at that movie, at the theaters to go watch that movie. So it's been a very long time. And this year, you finally got NHL players back into the Olympics, which is very, very exciting. So for me, the reason this all came about is I live in New York and I work for a company where half of my team is in London. Now we had this massive snowstorm coming to New York, and my flight was Sunday night, which would have gotten canceled the night of this massive blizzard. So what I decided to do, and to make sure I got to London on time, was move my flight up to Saturday. But I was sitting there Friday night, drinking with my buddies, having a good time, and I'm like, the gold medal ice hockey games on Sunday in Milan. Should I just reroute my trip and go from, instead of going straight from New York to London, go from New York to Milan and then go to London right after so I can be on time for all the work things that I have to do? And, it took some convincing. I needed a few beverages, but eventually changed my flight. I literally left the next day, which was Saturday afternoon. It was a marathon of flights. It was a red eye from the U.S., from New York to France, from France to Milan. I landed in Milan at like 8 in the morning in Italy's time zone. And then I have like 4 or 5 hours before the game starts. So luckily I got there at a good amount of time. I booked a hotel for 2 nights, even though I was only going to be staying for one, just so I can get in there, put my stuff down, go take a shower, and then head out to the game. And it was really cool. Like the first thing I did is I went over to one of the main like downtown areas of Milan where they have, obviously all the old architecture, churches, things like that. But they had this huge mega store set up around the Olympics. There were lights everywhere with like skiers and ice hockey players and curlers and all that good stuff. Just like all lit up down the streets, which was really cool. And I just like walked around. Now, I will say I'm a little upset with the way that they actually put everything together there. Because number one, I didn't love the like gear that you could get. Like obviously you can't really get anything with the Olympics in Milan on it, except from the, company that's running the Olympics, which is, I think it's the IAC, I think it is. So, and the gear wasn't great. It was like some weird colors and stuff like that. So I wasn't really into a lot of the stuff that was in the store. So I didn't buy much. And the other thing is you can only pay with a Visa card. You either pay with Visa or cash. And like, this was way too quick of a trip for me to stop at the bank beforehand, because it was literally one day I decided to do it. The banks were closed, and get cash. So I couldn't buy anything. I couldn't buy any any gear or anything like that. So that part kind of sucked. I was like, I'm literally trying to give you money right now, and you won't take my money because you only want to take Visa card. So maybe that's on me. Maybe I got to get one of those Visa cards with the Jets logo on it and go from there. Maybe I'll do that actually later today. So that part kind of stunk. But then, after that, I go back to my hotel, get myself ready, go to the game. The game is very cool. It's like 20, 25 minutes outside of the actual downtown of Milan. So it's not easy to get to. Luckily, there's a train system that gets you there and all that stuff. I get dropped off, and there's just thousands of USA and Canada hockey fans there, which made for a really great atmosphere because everybody was really nice but very passionate about their teams, which was cool. And the first thing I do, like I get up to the, like where you like scan your tickets and stuff. I get up there, and the first person I see is literally hockey icon, legend, hero for Team USA, Mike Eruzione with his family, trying to figure out how to work his tickets to get through the gate, which was really funny. I was like, ooh, that might be a good sign for us today, that the first person I see is Mike Eruzione. And you get in, and then you have this like long walk down this long pathway, and then boom, you're in this little town. Then all of a sudden, the stadium pops up out of nowhere. Now, the stadium was definitely rushed to be built, but it was pretty nice. Like the concourse was nice, all that kind of stuff. It only held like 14,000 people. And for me, I just like bought one ticket the day before. And I buy this ticket, and luckily I'm in this like, I picked row 10. I was like, I don't know, like they're all the same. Like I just picked row 10. And it turns out my seat was in the cutoff of where the Zamboni comes out. So I was in the first row of the cutoff. So there was no one sitting in front of me. The only problem is there were like these 3 bars that were like blocking my view a little bit just to make sure I didn't like fall over the ledge. But you're standing up in most of the third period anyway, so it didn't really bother me too much. But the stadium, you could tell it was just like, okay, they threw together some boards, some seats, all that kind of stuff, and it was a little rinky-dink. Sounds like it's going to be more of a concert arena eventually, but it did its job. Now during the game was awesome. I mean, you're sitting there, the U.S. comes out firing, they score almost instantly, which was insane. And I'm surrounded by like Canadian fans too. I had one guy next to me who was from the US, and then everyone else was from Canada around me. So I really needed to get out of the, Canada zone. And I think that goal really helped. The tough part was everyone's yelling, and the Canada chants drowned out the USA chants. So we're chanting USA, and they're going Canada, and the Canada ones really stood out. So that was tough. And then the game is just like one of the most tense games I've ever watched in person. And I forget this as a Jets fan because normally I'm at these games and we're getting blown out in the first 15 minutes. Well, here it was just so intense, and there was massive power plays. Hellebuck was one of the greatest performances I've ever seen in a big game in history. That save where he turns around, sticks out his stick, well, that should have been a no-doubter goal. Who was the other? Nathan McKinnon should have had a goal, but he missed the net. He kind of hit the backside of the post. So it was just it was intense. And then obviously we're just waiting. We're sitting there waiting for Canada to score. It's 1-1. I think Cale Makar got a goal. It's 1-1, and we're just sitting there watching them pepper us constantly. But we survived to the third. Third period's the same thing. Luckily, I'm on the attack side, which means the U.S. is shooting twice in the section I'm sitting in, and a third time because they go to overtime. We get to overtime. Well, the third period, we're standing up the whole time. It is so tense. Everyone is quiet because we're just like waiting, and we're just going, oh man. It was out of control. I can't even explain to you what it felt like to be in that arena in that moment. Us USA fans scared out of our minds. Canada fans being like, how are we not winning at this point? And then we go to overtime. And then when you go to 3-on-3, it's like, okay, anybody's got a chance. But you see the 3 guys that they have out there for 3-on-3 for Canada. I'm like, these are the 3 greatest hockey players in the world. I think it was Cale Makar, Nathan McKinnon, and Connor McDavid. I'm like, how the heck are we going to beat this trio? This is the best trio I've ever seen. And then, of course, you get the great play where I think it was Hughes who actually loosens the puck. We get kind of a little bit of a break where we had numbers. It was 3-on-1. And then somehow, some way, Hughes gets open in front of the middle. Puck comes straight across, and it's literally right in front of me. I had the perfect view of this goal, and I actually saw it go in before Hughes even knew it went in. He takes the slap shot, goes into the net, right through the 5-hole, and the USA wins. and the elation from the USA fans was unbelievable. It was such a cool experience. I know this took 10 minutes of this podcast for me to talk about it, but it was so emotional, so cool. I knew I was a part of like a big moment in USA history, which was really great. And then to see the Johnny Gaudreau jersey come out, to see them get their medals, to watch my guy Brock Nelson, who's an Islander legend, get his gold medal. It was really cool. And it's kind of weird that you're rooting for like New Jersey Devils players and New York Rangers players who I hate to do well in these games was really weird, but really a cool experience. And I think the weirdest part of the whole thing was probably the concession stand situation. I mean, this is gonna be the one of the best memories I've ever had, and I'm glad the concession stand situation was not great because I was very sober and very clear watching the game, remembering what was happening. But they only served one type of beer. It was Corona, which is probably the last thing you would have guessed. And they were like 300 milliliter Coronas. So like my entire hand could grasp an entire Corona bottle. And then they had these like hot dogs. They called them hot dogs, but they were like weird sausages. It was not a good situation, but same thing. I couldn't pay for anything anyway because I didn't have a Visa card. So I had to wait on this long cash line. And I just got 2 beers and I was just like, all right, I'm sitting down. This is not the time. So overall, great experience. Probably the most spontaneous thing I've ever done. So happy I did it. It's going to be a memory I'm going to have for the rest of my life. And congrats to both the men's and women's team for winning gold. It's Canada. That's really your big sport, and we own you now. So it was wild. It was definitely wild. But okay, that was the USA, and then I of course had to fly from Milan to Germany to London, and then stay there for a week for work. So great trip. I had such a great time, and I'm so happy that I did it. All right, let's talk a little bit about the New York Jets here. Let's shift gears back into what Juicy Jet is known for here. Let's go to the Aaron Glenn and Darren Mougey press conference. So on Tuesday, I think it was at 1 o'clock, Aaron Glenn and Darren Mougey spoke, and I thought it was interesting. I think the big thing for Aaron Glenn was talking about his new staff, and a lot of the questions were around what happened with him calling plays. I think his answer was a little confusing. I think he talked a lot about how Wink Martindale may have been on board for that, but then he didn't seem like it fit right. So then he thought that he should bring in Duker because Duker knows what he's doing. And I think the one thing that stood out is Aaron Glenn called calling plays his superpower, which is fine. I don't know if I think he was a little exaggerating. I don't know if he meant to say it that way, but of course it's going to get clipped and everyone's going to talk about it. But for me, I think the big problem with calling it your superpower is if it's your superpower, why didn't you do it last year? I think that's the big question, and I get it. You wanted an advisor in Steve Wilkes to come in and teach you how to be a head coach. But if you see the defense falling apart like that throughout the year, how did you not step in and help if this is your superpower? So I think that was the one thing that was a little tough. But overall, not a ton from Aaron Glenn. He wasn't as combative with the media, which I thought was a good thing. I think he needs to probably adopt that for the rest of this year. We'll see how it goes, but not a lot coming out of Glenn except for that one quote that I didn't love. And I will say this too. Later on in the week, Aaron Glenn was like caught on camera sleeping at the combine. I personally don't think he was sleeping. I think he was looking down on his iPad or whatever, or his notes. And because the way he just like was up and moving after that, I was like, he wasn't, there's no way. But it was probably just a bad moment. I'm not too worried about it. Aaron Glenn does not seem like the guy who's checked out and isn't trying or paying attention or anything like that. He seems very invested. So I don't think it's really a big deal. And it's not something that, I'm too worried about. I'm more worried about the performance on the field than I am him at the combine. Robert Saleh used to not even go to the combine. So I think that's worse. Okay. Mougey's press conference, that was a really interesting one. I was surprised at how direct Mougey was about a lot of the things going on with the team. Number one, the big thing was Breece Hall. He was asked about Breece Hall, about what's going to happen with him. And he said, we're trying to get a deal done. So, I mean, they're trying to negotiate. And if not, the tags are on the table. So to me, what it sounded like is Breece Hall will be a New York Jet in 2026. He's not going anywhere. Now, is it for an extended period of time? Are we going to assign him to an extension? I doubt it. But will he be on the tag? I think so. Now, the big question is which tags are going to be. And the tag amounts came out this week. $14 million for the franchise tag where no one else can, offer him anything. Or the transition tag, which is $11 million. It seems like they're going to go with the $11 million option. Let the market decide what the extension should be for Brees. So like if the Chiefs come in and say, oh, we're going to offer him a 3-year, $45 million deal, the Jets can just match or say, nah, he's not worth that. And if they match, then it's cool. We got him locked down for 3 years, and that's it. But you know my stance on Brees. I've said it a million times. I don't love the mopiness. I don't love how he's always negative. So that's got to stop. But otherwise, like, I'm happy to have him back because I don't want to create another hole on the team. And we need playmakers, all that kind of stuff, because hopefully we'll have like some sort of a veteran quarterback that can dish it around and get him involved. So that was that. The second thing that I thought was really interesting is he brought up AVT. It sounds like from listening to him and then listening to a couple other Jets podcasters, beat reporters, people like that, people are very confused about what to pay AVT. So it sounds like what they're going to do is let him and John Simpson go to free agency, see what some of the offers are that those two get, and then decide if they want to pay that. The tough part with AVT is he could get hurt at any time and miss the entire year. So I don't know if you want to fork over a 4-year, $100 million deal to an AVT right now. But if you can get him for a 1 or 2 year deal and see what the market thinks of him, maybe it's $12 million a year, maybe it's $15 a year, maybe it's $20 a year. I don't know, but that'll help you determine what the right amount to pay him is. And hopefully it's not one of those things where he just takes the first offer and doesn't come back to us to try to drive up the price. I don't think an agent would do that. I think the agent would try to get his person as much money as humanly possible. So we'll see what happens with guard, but sounds like it's not going to get done before free agency starts. So we'll wait and see. So I thought those were really interesting things by Mougey. The other thing he said was that he was a part of some of the interviews that Glenn was doing with defensive coordinator candidates. And what he said was, I was looking Glenn in the eye during some of these interviews, and it just felt like Glenn wanted to call plays again. So it sounded like we were headed that direction no matter what. It just took forever to get there. So I think those were the big things that came out of the press conferences. Nothing crazy. I think we'll hear from them again at the owners' meeting in a few weeks. I think that might be post-free agency and all that kind of stuff. So we'll see how that all goes. But good to hear from the two of them. Okay, now on to this Jermaine Johnson trade. So Jermaine Johnson gets traded for T'Vondre Sweat from the Tennessee Titans. I talked all about it on the last podcast, but for me, I'm just going to give you my overall, here's my summary. My summary is, I think this is a really good trade for both sides. A lot of people are giving the Jets the advantage in this trade. My thing is, we'll see. We got to see how T'Vondre Sweat plays with us, how we keep him interested and engaged and active. He could have the ceiling of a Chris Jenkins. He could have he could have the floor of any other bust defensive tackle we've had in our lives. I don't think so because he's on the rise. So I think he can be pretty good for us. But, you never know. And same thing with Jermaine Johnson. Jermaine Johnson's coming off that Achilles injury 2 years ago. He could be a lot better this year, especially under Robert Saleh again and Aaron Whitecotton, who is the defensive line coach who used to be our coach back in the day with Robert Saleh. So we'll see how it ends up. My thing is, we saved $11 million, so you get an extra $10 million on the salary cap for us this year, which means that could be another defensive tackle we bring on. That could be another corner, a safety. That could be, so many. That could go to so much. That could pay for Breece Hall right there. So I think that's a big piece. Plus, he's under contract for 2 years, while Jermaine was only 1. He's 4 years younger, T'Vondre Sweat is, than Jermaine Johnson. So there's a lot of positives to this, and I get it. We need a pass rusher. But what this trade does is it locks us into who this is going to be at pick number 2. It's going to be Arvell Reese, David Bailey, or I don't think Ruben Bain's really involved at this point. I think he might be out of the picture because of his short arms. But, you never know. It could be him too. So it's really interesting. It's really interesting. And I think based on some of the combine results, you'll see maybe our pick becomes a little juicy. Sorry about that, everybody. I think if you're watching on YouTube, my entire Riverside just shut down. So let's continue on. So we finished up with the Jermaine Johnson trade. Obviously good for both sides, and we feel like the Jets probably got a pretty good deal out of it. But let's talk about the combine here. So we just mentioned we're pretty much locked into DN/edge rusher as our number 2 overall pick in the draft, which would be either Arvell Reese or David Bailey. So let's look a little bit about, or talk a little bit about what they did at the combine this week, because it was a big week for them. Now, David Bailey had a pretty good 40-yard dash, ran a 4.5, which is amazing, a 1.62 10-yard split. He did the vertical and broad, but didn't do anything else. I think the big thing for him is no one really knows how he's going to do laterally. So he didn't run the 3-cone or the 20-yard shuffle, didn't do the shuttle, or didn't do the bench press either. Hopefully, we're able to see some more of that at his pro day. He also slipped a few times when he was doing some of the positional drills when he was going back and forth. So we don't know if he has the ankle flexibility to be the guy that should be a number 2 overall pick, but overall should be a good player. So that was David Bailey. Arvell Reese, on the other hand, absolutely dominated this combine, and he didn't even do a lot. All he did was the 40-yard dash and the 10-yard split. He ran a 4.46, which is the fastest of all DNs and line. Whoops, sorry for if you heard that background noise. He ran a 4.46, which is the top for all edge rushers and linebackers, and then a 1.58 10-yard split, which is just, these are elite numbers across the board. And we already know he's a rock-solid off-ball linebacker, and we're projecting for how he can do as an edge rusher. It feels like he's the favorite in the clubhouse right now, Arvell Reese is, to become our draft pick at number 2. And honestly, I'd be happy with it. I think there's a lot you can do with him. I think he's like an athletic freak. I feel like if he's not a good edge rusher, we could just put him at off-ball linebacker. So we'll see how it goes, but I'm very excited about Arvell Reese and how he performed. Now, there are a few other people that, we had to look at. Obviously, the safeties are going right now. I think the quarterbacks are still throwing right now. The receivers are running routes. So there's still a lot to uncover, but a couple of the receivers I was excited about. Mekhi Lemon, he was very funny to listen to in his presser. He didn't do anything. He just measured and stuff like that. But he was hilarious. He's a guy who I feel like I would fall in love with as our pick at 16. The problem is, who knows if he's going to make it to 16? That's the big issue. So that was Mekhi Lemon. Jordan Tyson, not a lot of news on him. He didn't do anything. He didn't work out, which kind of stinks because the big thing is he's injured. So how do we know if he's healthy? So I don't know. I'm very worried about the fact that, is he going to be a guy that we can actually take at 16 if he falls there due to all the health and injury concerns? So we'll see how it plays out. We'll see what he does at his pro day, but disappointing to not see him actually do anything, either on the field or off. And then 2 quarterbacks I wanted to talk about. Obviously, Fernando Mendoza, he's going to go to the Raiders, so we're just going to leave him out of it. Ty Simpson. It was actually really funny to see Ty Simpson. I think I think Jake Asman might have walked up to him and said, Jet fans are hoping to get you. What do you say? And he did the Jets chant, which was awesome. He said a lot of positive things about the coaching staff and all that. So did Arvell Reese and other folks. He came in at 6'1", but 211. We think he can get up to 220. So he'll be tough, but still kind of short for a quarterback. He also had some really good things to say at the presser. That was one of the things I said in the last Juicy Jet pod, was how is he going to react to some of the negativity that happened during the second half of the season. He was awesome the first half, and then his receivers were dropping balls. His O-line couldn't block. His running game couldn't get going. And he really talked a lot about the problems he had personally, where he had a sickness, he was hurt, and still gutted through it throughout the entire college football season and playoffs. So I thought he gave some really good answers, and is a really likable guy. So I feel like he'd be a good pick at 16 if we can get him there. The problem is some people think that he may go anywhere between 11 and 16. So we'll see what happens. And then finally, one of my favorite quarterbacks is Garrett Nussmeier. I've always really liked him. He's the son of a coach who is the coach, I think he's the offensive coordinator for the Saints. And he's played a lot of football. The problem is he's kind of small. He came in at 6'2", which is good height, but his weight is only 200, I think it was 203 pounds. And he just kept getting hurt this year. So I guess the question is he ever going to fill into that body and be more of a 220? But maybe not. Maybe just has a small frame. So who knows? He would be a late round pick anyway, while Ty Simpson would have to go in the first or second round, depending on where he falls or lands. So I don't know. Tough one with the quarterback situation, but we'll see how it goes. Either way, everybody seemed to handle the media really well. All right, last thing I just want to talk about is dates to look out for moving forward here. March is here. We're one day away from March, which means football off-season stuff really puts pedal to the metal. So on March 3rd, so what is that? Tuesday is the deadline at 4 p.m. to franchise tag or transition tag anyone on your team. So that means the Breece Hall news will come out on Tuesday. Hopefully before that, we'll probably know Monday or Tuesday about what happens with Breece Hall. Number 2, March 9th is the legal tampering period. So we are a week out from the legal tampering period where you can start to negotiate with free agents. Now, normally, a lot of the tampering's already happening, which means you find out at that moment, I think it's noon on March 9th, what free agents you're going to be signing. And then on the 11th of March is the official start of the league year, where everyone can put pen to paper, officially sign those contracts. The trade for Jermaine Johnson and T'Vondre Sweat will officially count on that date. So things are happening. We're rolling, and then the draft's a month and a half away at this point. We're 2 months away. So there's a lot going on. There's going to be a lot of news over the next couple of weeks. I'm taking a little mini vacation right at the end of next weekend. And then after that, it's going to be all about what's going on with the New York Jets. So stay tuned for all the new stuff that's going to be going on. If you could follow me across all socials, JuicyJet25 on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. Please like, rate, subscribe, review, follow. Help me out. Do all those things. That would be amazing. And we will talk again soon. I want to do a free agency preview episode in the next 3 days to try to get you guys thinking about who the Jets could take and pick up. And we'll kind of go from there. So thank you all for listening. Appreciate the time. Sorry for the mishap in the middle. And we will talk to you all soon. See ya.